The smell hit me first. Not Beth's usual vanilla perfume, but something expensive and masculine clinging to her hair like guilt. She stumbled through our front door at 3:17 a.m., and I know the exact time because I'd been staring at that digital clock for the past 4 hours, nursing a warm beer and a cold suspicion. Lost your way? Or just your dignity? I said from the living room couch, not bothering to look up from my electrical schematics. Beth froze in the hallway like a deer caught in headlights. Her black dress was wrinkled, lipstick smeared, and there was something different about her. A satisfied glow that sure as hell hadn't come from her supposed girls' night out with Sabrina and Lauren. Mick, you scared me, she said, trying to smooth her hair. What are you doing up? Funny thing about being an electrician, I said, finally looking at her. You develop a sense for when circuits are about to blow. And baby, something's been shorting out around here for weeks. She laughed, but it sounded forced. You're being paranoid. Sabrina's cousin was in town, remember? We went to that new wine bar downtown. I stood up slowly, all 6'2" of blue-collar suspicion. 23 years I'd been running Parish Electric, and you don't survive in this business without learning to spot liars. Beth was lying through her perfectly capped teeth. Sabrina's cousin, I repeated. The one who apparently wears Armani cologne and leaves hotel receipts in your purse? Her face went white. I'd found the receipt while looking for aspirin in her bag earlier. 2 nights at the Marriott downtown, signed by Beth Parrish, with a mysterious DL, listed as the second guest. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. But her voice cracked like old insulation. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshot I'd taken from Lauren's Instagram story. There was my wife of 15 years, laughing and clinking champagne glasses with Darren Locke, the slick real estate developer who'd been sniffing around town like a dog in heat. The timestamp showed 11:30 p.m., 2 hours after she'd supposedly left for her innocent girls' night. Want to try again? I asked. Beth's mask finally slipped. The sweet, apologetic expression melted into something harder, more calculating. So what if I was with Darren? You think I don't deserve better than this? She gestured around our lived-in home, the house I'd bought with my own sweat and rewired with my own hands. Better than what? A husband who works his ass off to keep you comfortable? A man who's never cheated, never lied, never treated you like anything less than a queen? A man who smells like electrical tape and whose idea of romance is fixing the garbage disposal, she shot back. Darren appreciates me. He makes me feel alive. The words hit like a live wire to the chest, but I kept my voice steady. How long? 3 months, she said, lifting her chin defiantly. And before you start throwing around accusations, nothing physical happened until last week. Last week? While I was working 16-hour days to finish the Morrison office building project. My wife was playing house with some smooth-talking developer in a hotel room. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of my sight before I do something we'll both regret. Go sleep in the guest room. We'll talk about this tomorrow when I can think straight. She opened her mouth to argue, then apparently thought better of it. As she headed upstairs, she turned back with a cruel smile. You know what the funny thing is, Mick? Everyone already knows. The whole town's been talking about it for weeks. You're the last to find out, again. After she disappeared upstairs, I sat back down and stared at that hotel receipt. 3 months. 3 months of lies. Of her coming home late with excuses about book club and yoga classes and shopping trips. 3 months of me being the fool who believed every word. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Thanks for last night, can't wait to do it again. Same room tomorrow. Ni, D. The message was clearly meant for Beth, but she'd given him my number by mistake. Or maybe not by mistake. Maybe she wanted me to find out this way, wanted to twist the knife a little deeper. I forwarded the text to my own phone for evidence, then deleted it from hers. If Beth wanted to play games, I'd play along. But she was about to learn that, when it comes to electrical work, I'm always 3 steps ahead of the current. The next morning, I was at Parish Electric by 6 a.m., nursing black coffee and plotting. My foreman, Big Joe Kowalski, found me in the office, surrounded by printouts of Beth's credit card statements and phone records. Boss, you look like you stuck your finger in a light socket, Joe said, settling his massive frame into the chair across from my desk. At 6'6" and 300 pounds of solid muscle, Joe looked more like a bouncer than an electrician, but he could thread conduit through a wall cavity like he was sewing silk. Beth's cheating, I said without preamble. Joe and I had worked together for 12 years, no point in dancing around it. With that real estate prick Locke? Joe asked, not sounding surprised. I looked up sharply. You knew? Suspected. Saw them together at Murphy's Deli last month, looking pretty cozy. Figured it wasn't my place to say anything. He shifted uncomfortably. Sorry, boss. Should have told you. It's not your fault. I handed him the hotel receipt. Question is, what do I do about it? Joe studied the paper like it was a complex wiring diagram. Could always wire his car to give him a little shock when he touches the door handle. Nothing dangerous, just enough to make him think twice. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Tempting, but I'm thinking bigger picture here. Beth says the whole town knows about this. I need to find out who's talking and what they're saying. Leave that to me, Joe said. I'll hit the copper tap after work, buy a few rounds, see what folks are saying. You know how people get when they're drinking? Tongues get looser than a stripped wire nut. While Joe handled reconnaissance, I had my own investigation to conduct. I drove to Beth's favorite coffee shop, where she met her girlfriends every Tuesday morning. Sure enough, there she was at a corner table with Sabrina Walsh and Lauren Mitchell, their heads bent together in conspiratorial whispers. I parked across the street and activated the voice recording app on my phone. Through the open window, I could hear fragments of their conversation. Told him about Sabrina's cousin. That was Beth's voice. Can't believe he bought that. Sabrina, laughing. Darren says he's ready to make it official. Lauren, sounding jealous. Just need to figure out how to handle the divorce without losing everything. Beth again. My blood ran cold. She was already planning our divorce, calculating how to screw me over financially while she ran off with her developer boyfriend. But two could play that game. I drove to Mrs. Eckhart's house next door to ours. At 78, Eleanor Eckhart was the neighborhood's unofficial surveillance system. Nothing happened on Maple Street without her knowing about it. Mick, dear, she said, opening her door before I could knock. I was wondering when you'd come by. Tea? Thanks, Mrs. E. I need to ask you about something, and I'd appreciate your discretion. Her eyes lit up. Eleanor loved being in on secrets. Of course, dear. Is this about Beth and that man? You've seen them together? Oh, honey. She patted my arm sympathetically. That woman's been sneaking around for months. I've seen him pick her up 3 times in the past 2 weeks alone. Flashy silver car. Thinks he's God's gift to womankind. Last Thursday, I saw them in your driveway at 2 in the morning, carrying on like teenagers. In my own driveway. The disrespect was staggering. Would you be willing to write down what you've seen? Dates, times, that sort of thing? Already started a journal, she said proudly. Figured you'd need evidence eventually. Men like that, they always get what's coming to them. That evening, Joe returned from the copper tap with a full report. Half the town knew about Beth's affair, and the other half was placing bets on when I'd find out. The consensus seemed to be that I was either blind or pathetic. Possibly both. Gets worse, Joe said, cracking open a beer. Apparently Locke's been bragging about it. Says he's upgrading Beth to a better life, like she's a kitchen appliance. Real classy guy. What else? Sabrina's been telling everyone that you're emotionally unavailable and that Beth deserves better. Lauren's been backing her up, though word is she's got her own thing for Locke, and she's pissed about being second choice. I leaned back in my desk chair, processing this information. So Beth had been poisoning the well for months, painting me as the bad guy, while she played the neglected wife. Meanwhile, her boyfriend was treating our marriage like a joke, and her friends were helping spread the narrative. You know what really pisses me off? I said. It's not just the cheating, it's the disrespect, the lies. The way she's trying to make me look like the villain in her little soap opera. So what's the plan, boss? I looked at the evidence spread across my desk. Photos, receipts, witness statements, recorded conversations. Beth thought she was so clever, but she'd left a trail of breadcrumbs that led straight back to her lies. First, we're going to show Mr. Locke that actions have consequences, I said. Then we're going to make sure everyone in town knows exactly who the real villain is in this story. Joe grinned, an expression that would have terrified most people. Now you're talking my language. Darren Locke lived in a penthouse condo downtown, the kind of place that screamed, "Look how successful I am," to anyone within a 5-mile radius. His silver Audi was parked in the building's garage, gleaming under the fluorescent lights like a trophy. Beautiful car, Joe said, running his massive hand along the hood. Shame if something happened to it. It was 2 a.m. on a Thursday night, and the garage was empty except for us and our revenge. I'd spent the day gathering supplies, paint stripper, industrial-grade glitter, and a set of metal letter stamps I'd borrowed from the machine shop. "Remember," I told Joe as we got to work, "we're not criminals, we're artists." The paint stripper went on first, eating through the Audi's pristine silver finish in satisfying streaks. While that worked its magic, I used the letter stamps to spell out "cheater" across the hood in permanent, raised letters. Joe handled the glitter, dumping handfuls of the stuff into the air vents, under the door handles, and through the slightly cracked sunroof. "This is going to be everywhere," Joe said with satisfaction. "His clothes, his hair, his fancy condo. He'll be finding glitter for months." We finished by zip-tying a note to his windshield wiper. "You break it, I break it. Next time, keep your hands off other men's wives." A concerned citizen. The next morning, I was rewarded with a furious phone call from Beth. "What the hell did you do to Darren's car?" "I have no idea what you're talking about," I said innocently. "I was home all night. You can ask Mrs. Eckhart. She saw me working in the garage until midnight," which was technically true. I had been working in the garage, just not on what Beth thought. "This isn't over, Mick. Darren's calling the police. Good luck with that. I hope they find whoever did it. Vandalism is a serious crime." What I didn't tell her was that I'd already had a conversation with Detective Rick Landry, an old friend who'd hired me to rewire his house last year. Rick had given me some useful advice about security cameras and blind spots, purely hypothetically, of course. The real fireworks started that afternoon at the weekly farmers market in the town square. Beth was there with her girlfriends, no doubt spinning some sob story about her unstable husband. I decided it was time to set the record straight. "Attention, everyone," I called out, standing on the steps of the town hall. "I have an announcement to make." The crowd turned to look at me, about 50 people, including several of my customers, and half of Beth's social circle. Perfect audience. Many of you know me as Mick Parrish from Parrish Electric. Some of you might have heard rumors about my personal life lately. I'm here to set the record straight. Beth's face went white. She started pushing through the crowd toward me, but Joe stepped into her path, all 6'6" of him, creating an immovable barrier. "My wife Beth has been having an affair with Darren Locke for the past 3 months, I continued, my voice carrying clearly across the square. "Now, I know some of you already knew this. Apparently I was the last to find out. But what you might not know is that she and her friends have been spreading lies about me to justify her behavior." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the portable speaker I'd brought. "I recorded this conversation yesterday morning at Grindhouse Coffee. I think you'll find it illuminating." Bal's voice filled the square, crystal clear. Told him about Sabrina's cousin, and the idiot actually believed it. Sabrina's laughter. "Can't believe he bought that story. Lauren, Darren says he's ready to make it official once you get rid of the dead weight." Balls again. "Just need to figure out how to handle the divorce without losing everything. My lawyer says if I can prove he's emotionally abusive." The crowd murmured angrily. These were good people, hard-working folks who valued honesty and loyalty. They didn't appreciate being lied to, and they especially didn't like seeing a man's reputation destroyed by false accusations. "Now," I said, stopping the recording, "I want everyone to know that I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm a grown man, and I can handle my own problems. But I won't stand by while my character is assassinated by people who wouldn't know the truth if it bit them on the ass." "Bals wilde Nissendulkums, Bielkaustok. You recorded us illegally. Actually, it was perfectly legal," I said calmly. "Public place. No reasonable expectation of privacy." I checked with a lawyer. "You're making a fool of yourself," she screamed. "No, Beth. I'm making a fool of you." That's when Darren Locke showed up, still covered in glitter, despite obviously having showered multiple times. His expensive suit sparkled in the afternoon sun like a disco ball. "Parrish," he shouted, pushing through the crowd. "I know you vandalized my car." "Prove it," I said. He reached the steps and got right in my face, close enough that I could smell his cologne, the same scent I'd detected on Beth's hair. "You're going to pay for this, you blue-collar piece of trash." The crowd went silent. In a town like ours, calling someone blue-collar trash was like dropping a nuclear bomb. These were electricians and plumbers and mechanics and construction workers. They were the backbone of the community, and they'd just been insulted by some outsider in a $1,000 suit. "Is that what you really think of us?" I asked loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "Is that what you think of the people who built this town, who keep the lights on and the water running and the buildings standing?" Darren realized his mistake too late. The crowd was turning ugly, and he was outnumbered 50 to 1. "I didn't mean," he started. "Oh, you meant it," I said. Just like you meant to steal another man's wife. Just like you meant to humiliate me in front of my neighbors and friends. Well, congratulations, Darren. Mission accomplished. I pulled out a wad of cash, $500 in 20s, and threw it at his feet. Here's payment for services rendered. For the whore you bought, keep the change. Darren's face went purple with rage. He swung at me, a wild haymaker that any drunk in a bar could have seen coming. I stepped aside easily, and his momentum carried him straight into Mrs. Patterson's flower stall. He went down in a shower of daisies and potting soil, his glittery suit now decorated with dirt and crushed petals. The crowd erupted in laughter. Phones came out, recording his humiliation from every angle. Within minutes, the video would be all over social media with hashtags like #glitterguy and #flowerpower. As Darren struggled to his feet, covered in dirt and flowers and still sparkling like a craft project gone wrong, I leaned down and whispered in his ear, "Next time you want to play games with a working man, remember this moment. Remember how it feels to be humiliated in front of everyone you're trying to impress." Beth was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks as she realized her perfect plan was crumbling around her. Her friends had abandoned her, melting away into the crowd to avoid guilt by association. "This isn't over," she sobbed. "You're right," I said. "It's just getting started." The next few days brought a steady stream of vindication. The video of Darren's flower stall faceplant went viral locally, racking up thousands of views and hundreds of comments. Someone had set it to the Benny Hill theme song, which somehow made it even more humiliating. Beth moved out of our house and into Darren's condo, but their fairy tale romance was already showing cracks. According to Mrs. Eckhart's intelligence network, they'd been heard screaming at each other through the thin walls, mostly about money and blame and whose fault it was that they'd become the town's laughingstock. I thought the worst was over until Joe burst into my office on Monday morning, his face grim. "Boss, we got problems. Someone's been messing with our jobs." He showed me his phone, displaying a string of one-star reviews on our Google business page, all posted in the last 48 hours, all from fake accounts, all saying basically the same thing. Parish Electric was unreliable, overpriced, and run by an unstable owner who couldn't be trusted in people's homes. "It gets worse," Joe said. "Tommy Morrison called this morning. Someone told him you were having a nervous breakdown and might not be able to finish his office building project. He's thinking about pulling the contract." My blood pressure spiked. The Morrison project was worth $50,000, money I needed to keep the business afloat and my employees paid. Who told him that? Wouldn't say, but I got my suspicions. So did I. This had Beth's fingerprints all over it, probably with Darren's money behind it. They were trying to destroy my livelihood out of pure spite. I spent the morning calling customers, reassuring them that Parish Electric was stable and reliable, that the online reviews were fake, and that any rumors they'd heard were part of a malicious campaign by my estranged wife. Most of them believed me. I'd been doing good work in this town for over 20 years. But some seemed hesitant, uncertain. That afternoon, I decided to take the offensive. I drove to the Copper Tap and bought a round for everyone in the bar, then stood up to make another announcement. "Folks, you might have seen some negative reviews about my business online. I want you to know they're fake, posted by people trying to hurt me personally. But more than that, I want you to see exactly who you're dealing with." I pulled out my laptop and connected it to the bar's TV screen. "This is security footage from my shop, taken at 2 a.m. last Thursday." The video showed two figures breaking into my workshop, one tall and thin, one shorter with long hair. They were trying to plant something in my toolbox when the motion-activated lights came on, revealing their faces clearly. Beth and Darren, caught red-handed. "They were trying to plant drugs in my shop," I explained. "Probably figured they'd call in an anonymous tip, get me arrested, destroy my reputation permanently. Unfortunately for them, I upgrade my security system every few years. Occupational hazard of being an electrician. You learn not to trust people around expensive equipment." The bar erupted in angry muttering. These people had known me for decades. They'd hired me to wire their homes, trusted me with their family's safety. The idea that someone would try to frame me with planted evidence was beyond the pale. "Now, I could call the police," I continued. "Breaking and entering, attempted evidence tampering, that's serious jail time. But I'm going to give them one chance to back off. Stop the fake reviews, stop spreading lies about my business, and leave me alone to rebuild my life. If they don't," I shrugged. "Well, let's just say I've got more security footage where that came from." The message was clear. I had them dead to rights, and I wasn't afraid to use it. But Beth and Darren were apparently too stupid or too desperate to take the hint. The next night, they tried again. This time, I was ready for them. I'd set up motion sensors throughout the shop, connected to my phone. When they triggered the first alarm, I was already in position with Joe, both of us wearing dark clothes and night vision goggles I'd borrowed from my buddy at the security company. We watched them break in through the back door, moving cautiously through the workshop with flashlights. Darren was carrying a small bag, probably more drugs or maybe stolen goods they could discover later. "Now," Joe whispered. "Not yet. Let them commit to it." We waited until they were deep in the shop, bent over my main toolbox, before I flipped the switch. Every light in the building came on at once, bright as daylight, temporarily blinding them. At the same time, I activated the shop's old fire suppression system, a deluge of water that soaked them instantly. "Surprise!" I called out, stepping into view with my phone recording everything. "Breaking and entering, round 2. You guys really don't learn, do you?" Beth screamed and dropped her flashlight. Darren tried to run but slipped on the wet concrete, going down hard and sliding into a rack of electrical conduit. "The police are already on their way," I lied smoothly. "But hey, while we're waiting, why don't you tell me what's in the bag, Darren?" He clutched the bag protectively. But Joe simply walked over and plucked it from his hands like taking candy from a baby. Inside, a baggie of white powder and a roll of stolen copper wire. "Cocaine and stolen goods," I said admiringly. "You guys really went all out this time." "That's what, 10 years minimum? 15 with your priors, Darren?" "I don't have any priors," he protested. "You will after tonight." But I wasn't actually calling the police. Not yet. I had a better idea. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, still recording. "You're going to confess, right here on camera, to everything you've done. The affair, the fake reviews, the break-ins, all of it. You're going to apologize publicly and promise to leave town. And if you do that, I might consider not pressing charges." "Go to hell," Beth spat. "Counteroffer," I said. "I post this video online right now, along with the security footage from last week, and let the town decide what to do with you. I'm betting they won't be as generous as I'm being." Darren looked around the shop, at the cameras, at Joe's intimidating bulk, at the evidence in his hands, and his shoulders sagged in defeat. "What do you want us to say?" The confession video was everything I'd hoped for, and more. Beth and Darren, soaked and shivering, admitting to months of lies, manipulation, and criminal behavior. They looked pathetic, desperate, nothing like the confident schemers who'd thought they could destroy my life and get away with it. I edited the footage professionally, adding timestamps and captions for clarity. Then posted it to every social media platform I could think of. Within hours, it had been shared hundreds of times. The comment sections were brutal, people calling them trash, criminals, and worse. But I wasn't done yet. Lauren Mitchell, Beth's former friend, called me the next morning. She sounded scared, desperate. "Mick, I need to tell you something about Beth and Darren's plan. We met at a diner outside town, away from prying eyes." Lauren looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, hands shaking as she lit her third cigarette. "They're planning something," she said. "Something big. Beth's been talking to a lawyer, trying to figure out how to get your house, your business, everything. She thinks if she can prove you assaulted her." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "They're going to fake it, stage an attack, take photos, maybe even hurt her enough to make it look real. She's been practicing her victim act, learning how to cry on command." Lauren's voice was bitter. "I used to think Beth was my friend, but she's a sociopath. She doesn't care who she destroys." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm sick of being used. Beth promised me that once she got rid of you, Darren would notice me. But he treats me like garbage, and she just laughs about it. I'm done being their pawn." She slid a flash drive across the table. "Everything's on there. Recordings of their planning sessions, text messages, photos of them practicing the fake injuries. Enough to prove they're trying to frame you." I pocketed the drive. "When is this supposed to happen?" "Tonight. They're going to lure you to the old power plant by the river, claim you attacked Beth there, then call the police. They've already planted evidence, torn clothes, fake blood, the works, the abandoned power plant. I knew it well. I'd done the electrical work there 15 years ago, before the city shut it down due to environmental concerns. It was isolated, surrounded by woods, the perfect place for a setup, or the perfect place for a counter setup. "Lauren, I need you to do something for me," I said. Can you get them to the plant at exactly 9 p.m.? I think so, but what are you planning? Justice. I spent the rest of the day preparing. First, I called Mrs. Eckhart and asked her to accidentally start a Facebook live stream at 8:45 p.m., mentioning that she'd heard something about drama at the old power plant. Eleanor loved being the center of attention, and I knew she'd draw a crowd. Next, I visited the power plant to set up my surprise. The building's electrical system was still partially functional. I'd designed it to be modular, easy to repair or modify. It took me an hour to rig the old sprinkler system to a manual trigger, filling the pipes with a mixture of water and washable black paint I'd bought from the theater supply store. And finally, I called Detective Landry and gave him a heads up that something might go down at the plant tonight. I didn't tell him exactly what, just that he might want to have a patrol car in the area around 9 p.m. At 8:30, I was in position inside the power plant, hidden behind the old generator housing with a perfect view of the main floor. I'd set up multiple cameras to record everything, plus a live stream connected to my phone. Beth and Darren arrived right on schedule, carrying a bag of props, torn clothes, fake blood, a baseball bat they probably planned to claim I'd used as a weapon. They moved through the building like they owned it, arrogant and confident. "Remember," Beth was saying, "you heard me screaming and came running. He was on top of me, hitting me, completely out of control. You tried to stop him, but he ran when he saw you. What if he doesn't show up?" Darren asked. "He'll show." Lauren said she'd tell him I wanted to talk, to work things out. "His pathetic ass will come running, hoping to save our marriage." They spent 10 minutes setting up their scene, arranging the fake evidence, practicing their story. I recorded every word, every detail of their conspiracy. At exactly 9 p.m., I stepped out of hiding. "Sorry I'm late," I said casually. "Traffic was murder." They spun around, startled. Beth recovered first, switching instantly to her victim act. "Mick, thank God you came. We need to talk about—" "Cut the crap, Beth. I know exactly why you're here." I held up my phone, showing them the live stream. "Say hello to the internet, folks. You're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram simultaneously. Current viewer count is—" I checked the screen. "Holy shit, 400 people and climbing. Mrs. Eckhart really knows how to draw a crowd." Beth's fake smile crumbled. "You son of a bitch. Now, language. There are children watching." I gestured around the plant. "Nice setup you've got here. Very dramatic. I especially like the fake blood. Is that corn syrup, or did you spring for the good stuff?" Darren stepped forward menacingly. "Turn off that camera, or what? You'll assault me? On live stream? In front of 500 witnesses?" The viewer count was climbing rapidly as people shared the stream. "Please, Darren, make my day." That's when Beth made her fatal mistake. Desperate to salvage their plan, she grabbed the baseball bat and swung it at me, screaming, "Help me! He's trying to kill me!" I ducked easily. Beth had never been athletic and triggered my surprise. The sprinkler system activated with a thunderous roar, drenching both of them in black paint water. They screamed and stumbled, blinded by the deluge, slipping and sliding on the wet concrete. "Oops," I said to the camera, staying safely out of range of the sprinklers. "Looks like the old fire suppression system still works." Funny thing about industrial paint, it's designed to stick to everything. That's going to take weeks to wash out. Through the chaos, I could hear cars arriving outside. Mrs. Eckhart's Facebook Live had worked perfectly. Half the town was showing up to see the drama firsthand. Beth and Darren, now looking like they'd been dipped in tar, tried to run for the exit. But the paint made the floor slippery as ice, and they kept falling, getting more covered each time they tried to stand. "Before you go," I called out, "let me share something with our viewing audience." I switched the stream to show footage from the flash drive Lauren had given me. Beth and Darren planning the fake assault, practicing their lies, plotting to destroy my life and steal everything I'd worked for. The crowd outside was getting louder, angrier. These people had known me for decades, had trusted me with their homes and businesses. They were seeing the truth now, understanding how close Beth and Darren had come to destroying an innocent man with their lies. Detective Landry pushed through the crowd, took one look at the scene, and started laughing. "Jesus Christ, Mick. When you said something might happen, I wasn't expecting performance art." "Evening, Rick. I'd like to report an attempted assault." I gestured to Beth, who was still holding the baseball bat. "She tried to brain me with that thing. Good thing I ducked." "I can see that on the video," Rick said, pulling out his phone. along with about 1,000 other people. This is going to be all over the news. Beth tried one last desperate play. He's lying. He set this up. He lured us here. With what? I asked innocently. You came here to stage a fake assault and frame me for attempted murder. I have recordings of you planning the whole thing. The only crime I committed was turning on a sprinkler system in my own building. I still have the lease, by the way. Rick looked at the evidence, the fake blood, the planted weapons, the confession video still playing on my phone, and shook his head. Elizabeth Parrish, Darren Locke. You're under arrest for conspiracy, attempted fraud, breaking and entering, and he looked at the baseball bat in Beth's hands. Assault with a deadly weapon, as they were led away in handcuffs, dripping black paint and humiliation. Beth turned back to scream at me one last time. This isn't over! I'll destroy you! I looked directly into the camera, speaking to the 1,000 people now watching the stream. Some people think marriage is about forgiveness, about working through problems, about giving people second chances. But sometimes, when someone shows you who they really are, when they lie and cheat and scheme and try to destroy everything you've built, the only thing left to do is flip the breaker. I walked over to the old electrical panel and put my hand on the main breaker switch. Some breakers you flip back on when the problem's fixed. Some you leave off until you can repair the damaged circuit. I looked straight at the camera. And some, when the damage is too severe, when the corruption goes too deep. Some breakers you just rip out completely. I pulled the main breaker out of the panel and held it up for everyone to see. This one, I broke for good.